Hey guys, GameBoy3800 here once again, and today is the beginning of my vintage laptop benchmark review. And we're going to start off with these three. We have a HP with a Pentium 4M, we have a Dell Smartstep with a Pentium 4 desktop chip, and we have a newer model Gateway with a 3 GHz plus Pentium. So today we're going to start with these three to set the benchmark, or to set the, early stages of the graphs. And the first laptop we're going to look at is the Gateway. This is the Gateway 7330 series. And it came out fairly late in the Pentium 4 life cycle. This was clearly a budget option. If you take a look, it is pretty slim, for a Pentium 4 machine at least. It's got some newer creature comforts. It's got like smart cards, USB, definitely got the, SD card reader as well. Actually using it, it's not too bad. Touchpad is newer, buttons are newer, so it's easy to navigate with. And the back side has all the venting and the ports, and that's where the headphone microphone jacks are, strangely. That's the only weird thing about the ports on this laptop. The keyboard is pretty good. It's just a standard layout. And as I said, the trackpad is good as well. There is one problem with the build of this machine. It is that the left hinge, I believe, is starting to crack. And I've looked at other listings on eBay and social media, and evidently that's a common problem. The back panel is not very strong. But the display itself is a nice widescreen display. Pretty uncommon for a Pentium 4. Normally you get these in a 4:3 aspect ratio, but this is 16:9 or 16:10, one of those two. And it's really not too bad. Moving to the top side, you can see it's a pretty standard machine. Power, it's got media buttons, and it's got some stickers showing it's a Pentium 4 built for Windows XP. A little bit of venting on the top and the sides. And if we take a look at the bottom here, we can see it's pretty flat and not very well ventilated. And that is a problem. When I first got this machine, it would shut down from overheat protection. So I had to open it up. I had to clean out all the vents. And I did need to repaste it. You'll find that that's a common thing I'll do for this series, is repasting the CPU. Because, let's be honest, these are 15-plus-year-old machines at this point. And they need a good cleaning. And I put in a 40GB hard drive for it to boot up to Windows XP. And all these are going to be running Windows XP if I can help it. Just because that's what the Pentium 4 was built for, pretty much. And the main benchmark we are going to be using is Cinebench 11.5. That is the newest one you can use on Windows XP, I do believe. And all these scores are going to be fairly low. You'll see the score 0.5 or 0.6 to be fairly high for a Pentium 4 or something. And as we get to the newer computers with a Core 2 or Pentium M, that will start to climb. And I've got about 20 systems benchmarked so far, so this will be a pretty big list by the end of it. But overall, this Gateway, pretty good to use. I think it actually holds a charge, so you could use it on the go if you really wanted to. But it does show in some places that this was clearly a newer budget option, not a older top of the line like we will see from the Dell. I'm gonna shut this computer down now, and I'll show you the benchmark scores at the end. This series is all about my user experience, benchmarking them, and anything else I had to do, as well as showing off cool little options that are on these computers for the time. And that's the Gateway. Let's move into the HP. We are now here with the HP Pavilion ZT1155, and this is going to be one of our slower computers, certainly one of our older computers as well. This is running a Pentium 4M. And that's different from the mobile Pentium 4 or the desktop Pentium 4 laptops. This one runs very slow at 1.4 GHz. That is the slowest like Pentium 4 branded laptop you could, or chip you could get. The slower one of the same family or architecture is a Celeron. I wanted to keep this mostly Pentiums though. So we have a Pentium 4 running at 1.4 gigahertz. Despite not being too fast, the user experience on this was not great. I'll get into that later. Now let's take a look at the ports. We have headphone microphone, smart card reader, we have a SD card reader, PCMCIA, LAN, phone, S-video out, and even a parallel port in the back. Right side's got a CD drive, and the audio controls are on the side as well. And this does have a feature of these age laptops where you can play a CD without the laptop being on. Next we take a look at with it open. Keyboard is okay. Touchpad is really not okay. This is certainly an old laptop, and you can see the shine on it with the B-roll here. It's very used, and it does not track too well. It does have a dedicated scrolling area that I really don't get. It should be attached. But you can see the power buttons. It's all up there with the media keys as well. And actually using this laptop, one, it doesn't hold a charge, so that's not too good. Two, I had some problems with this with heat. Even though it's the slowest Pentium 4, it is still a Pentium 4. And if you look at the venting on this, it is not too open. It traps a lot of heat inside the chassis, so the bottom of it gets very warm, even with like a lifted cooling pad. Still though, it did pass the benchmarks. It didn't suffer from any overheating like the Gateway did. And it did not need or feel the need to clean it out. And here you can see the Pentium 4M sticker on it. And the keyboard and touchpad. And now we're going to take a look at the bottom as well. You'll see that there's really only one access point to air, and that's the fan. There's a little bit of other ventilation by the battery, but that's really not enough to cool a Pentium 4. So it does run really hot, and the fan is always on. So that's quite annoying. One final look at the keyboard and media buttons. It's a fairly standard layout, no complaints with the keyboard. It works. TM. And with Cinebench, this does have the lowest score I have ever seen for Cinebench 11.5. We will get into that later, but trust me, it took a long time to get this one posted, or to get the score posted. As for other specs, it's got a 20 gig hard drive, and I gave it the maximum 1.1 gigabytes of memory. It's got a 128 megabyte stick either under the keyboard or shuttered on. I never really looked. I just know that there's only one stick slot open on the bottom, and I populated that with a 1 gigabyte stick. So 1.1 gigabytes of RAM, more than enough to keep this thing fed for Windows XP and the small benchmark we're doing. But if you're looking here, it's taking a while for it to even start rendering, and that's usually not a good sign. However, I won't show the whole render pass, just trust me, it is not too good. And next computer we will look at is the Dell Smartstep. So let's hop into that. We now move on to the Dell Smartstep 250N. This is one of the older machines we're going to be taking a look at this series. This uses a desktop Pentium 4, but it is not hyper-threaded. It's 2.4 gigahertz, single core, single thread. It's a bit different from other hyper-threaded Pentium 4s, and it's actually quite a good-looking design. It's a pretty sleek-looking brick, I'll give it that. As for ports, we get some PCMCIA, we get a lot of venting on the side, along with some speakers it looks like. In the back we have a parallel port, more venting. Then we have our video outputs, even a serial port. That shows how old this is. Some LAN, phone line, S-video out, USBs. Those are the only USBs on this computer, by the way. Looks like we have a floppy drive, FireWire, headphone microphone, and a volume meter. and a DVD bay. And the DVD drive can be easily removed. That is one of the features of this machine. It's very easy to remove, and underneath it is the hard drive, so it's very easy to access the hard drive in this machine. Some machines it requires taking apart like the keyboard and stuff, and that's just not very good. And the keyboard itself is good. I typed a good bit on it, and it felt nice. But the touchpad, man, this is the worst touchpad I've felt in a long time. Touchpad really is not good. It's one of the touchpad glitches where it's all jumpy. Like, you can touch it and it'll go shooting to the right or left side of the screen. And I don't know why it does that. Maybe the heat from the processor is getting to it and making it think I'm touching it, but I'm not. I really don't know. I can't explain it without showing you. The screen itself is big, it is pretty bright, but there is a flaw with it in the fact that it is cracked. And that's something you gotta live with sometimes. Sometimes you get these and they get damaged in the mail, or they're untested and they just don't run, or they have something broken with them. This seems to be the last age Dell to use the small barrel plug. All future Dells seem to use a bigger barrel plug, and they are way more common, so I had to use a generic like 120 watt adapter for this computer. It worked okay. I was able to get the benchmark done when using an external screen, but it's just that, just getting it done. Next we look at the keyboard. The keyboard itself is pretty good. As I said, I typed a good bit on it, and it's also got the media keys up top like the HP. And here we take a look at the bottom. Surprisingly little venting for a desktop Pentium 4 from the time. There's just some side vents and a little bit of bottom venting. Really not too much to look at in terms of like ventilation. I'm surprised it was able to run, but the fans were on 24/7. It's a loud machine. That's what you expect for a desktop Pentium 4 and a laptop. And next I'll show what it looks like with the DVD bay out. Here you can see the hard drive is right there as well. And that's very easy to get at. You can easily upgrade it without having to take the whole machine apart. It's pretty cool. And I took out the battery as well, just to show that that's also easy to remove with just a simple slider. Other than that, this machine had about, 512 megs of RAM. That's enough for Windows XP. And very quickly I'll show you how bad the screen is. It is not good. It's a big thing of black and white. Can't see anything. So I had to use an external screen for this. Sometimes you gotta do that though. And one other thing of note here is that the hinge is very loose on this machine, so it likes to wobble. But yeah, let's go ahead and get ourselves into the benchmarks. And here we have our look at the scores. We can see for the HP ZT1155 with the Pentium 4M, 1.4 GHz, and 1.1 GB of RAM, it got a score of 0.18 in the Cinebench scores. And it took a long time. That took almost an hour from what I recall. The Dell 250N Smartstep was way better with the 2.4 GHz, 512 megs of RAM. It's obviously got way more voltage allowed, way more clock speed. It gets a score of 0.32. That is almost double that of the HP. Blowing everything out of the water, though, is the Gateway 7730 series. It's a 3.06 GHz Pentium 4 hyperthreading, 1.5 gigs of RAM with Windows XP. That got a score of 0.5. That is pretty good for a laptop, cheap laptop from today, a budget one. And like I said, I did need to clean it out to avoid overheating, but after it was running with no overheating, it did a really good job getting a good score. It was pretty fast at getting the whole thing done too. And that's it. that is the start of the vintage benchmarking series. If you guys enjoyed, then please do go ahead and leave a like, favorite, comment, share, and of course don't forget to subscribe for more, because I am going to be continuing the series one laptop at a time for the future, because this was just to set the benchmarks, literally. I hope you all enjoyed and are looking forward to the next episode of this. I think we'll tackle the IBM G40 series. That'll be a cool one to look at. I'll see you in the future.